Hi, I'm Melinda Alexander, the creator and host of Own Your Power, Lead Your Way, a summit designed to empower leaders to break free from overfunctioning, stop living on autopilot, and create a life where next level success and true fulfillment coexist. There's a kind of leadership that doesn't come from strategy or striving, but from your own creative life force. And today's guest lives and breathes that. Michelle James is a creativity coach, catalyst, and founder of the Center for Creative Emergence. For over 25 years, she's helped thousands of leaders, change makers, and teams reconnect with their creative self and lead from a place of aliveness. She's also a core somatics practitioner, improviser, artist, TEDx speaker, and the author of Pattern Breaks, a facilitator's guide to cultivating creativity. If you're craving a fresh way forward, this is the conversation you've been waiting for. Welcome, Michelle. It's so wonderful to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Melinda. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, I'm honored and thrilled to have you. And let's just dive right in. I'm a fan of your work personally and professionally, and I'd love to hear your story about how, your journey of how you became doing the work that you're doing today.
Sure. And, like many people, I think, who end up sort of doing what their feels their soul calling in a way, it was a confluence of things. And I would say one main contributor was I had an experience. It was an awareness, and I was truly in a different part of my brain. Like I had a vision, and in the vision, I really felt how at the center of there's a place in the center of us that is absolutely life giving and generative and creative,
Mhm.
and it that there it's the part of us that solves problems, creates visions, makes connections. And that was sort of a fleeting kind of experience, what some might call an awakening or an awareness or an aha moment, whatever it was.
Mhm.
But it lasted a little while, but it did have an impact on me. And then meanwhile, I was an English major and a communications major. And my first job out of college was at a radio station.
Mhm.
And I was doing sales and I'd also do the creative. And what started happening was they hired a professional consultant, and he said, all the people good at sales, just have them only do sales. And all the other people, you can always hire new creatives, just have the people who bring in the money. So I got thrown in with the salespeople. And all of a sudden, from selling so much, I went to my sales plummeted very
Mm.
dramatically. And I realized it was because it wasn't fun for me anymore and it wasn't engaging and I wasn't getting to participate in the creative where I'd make the ad spots and work with the clients to co-create with them. So I ended up through a series of events starting my own business, and my first version of it was called Creations Unlimited because in on the side I was also taking theater and improv and arts, and I was doing all kinds of creative things. And like many people, I'd wanted to be an art and theater major in college, but I was told that wasn't practical, so you
Mm.
go do the what the real that what can get you a real job. So I was always
Yeah.
trying to look at how do I bring in more, because when I was doing all my creative stuff, I was feeling very alive and could do it forever. How do I bring more of it into my work? And so my first company was called Creations Unlimited, and we did marketing and I did some copywriting and we did some marketing. And that was okay, but I start all of a sudden was having realizations that we're doing the creative for them.
Mhm.
And I met a man who at the time was starting his own business, and he became a mentor for me. I knew I wanted to do creativity and bring out the creativity of the group. And by this time, I'd been immersed in so many creative practices, and he was doing organizational development. So we formed a company, Proteus Center for Change, and he became kind of a mentor, and I learned a lot about group facilitation and group dynamics and organization through him, but I was bringing creativity in. And then he had a personal event in his life where he ended up retiring. He had been 20 years older and ended up retiring. And one thing I had realized in that, though he and I, when we started our business, while we had a similar mission, we were both very different creative styles and very different approaches and ways of doing it. But yet we both were valuing each other. So we learned how to collaborate and co-create. And how do you create a third way that contains what's important to you, what's important to me? We would work endlessly on how do we create something new that wasn't one of us having to compromise, but would include what was transcend and include,
Yes.
include what was important to both of us. And I would call that the third way. Let's create the third way. And
Hmm.
that's when I started learning about emergence and how there is a self organizing kind of emergence process, something that emerges that's greater than the sum of the parts. Like we would come up with ideas because we had all this goodwill of how we're going to create a business that was greater than us. But then when he left the business, I was so alive and enamored with learning these emergence principles and processes that were naturally happening. I was recording, principles of emergence, and meanwhile, I started taking improvisational theater, and I started going, oh, all these principles I'm learning of improv theater fit in with this, and plus, I'd been doing various forms of creative process, and I was like, oh, creative thinking principles fit in with this. So I knew that's what I wanted to do. And because emergence and um, looking at emergence and working at it creatively was so significant to me, I started the Center for Creative Emergence in 1999.
Yes.
That is where I've been since then. So up till that, it was a few years kind of exploring. And then, so here I am. Yeah. And it's evolved and changed a lot over time through
Yeah.
lots of trial and error. I learned so many things what worked by trying so many things that did not work that I'd have to either let go of, revise, or shift. And I still do that, and it's still alive for me. And that, like, it's my ongoing discovery.
Well, I love that. I feel like you live in a very dynamic way where you tried on something traditional, you got put in a box, it didn't work for you, and then you started exploring in different ways and exploring creativity. And on your journey, you discovered something magical. Then you found someone to co collaborate with and create with. Then discovered this path of emergence. And I love this word, emerging. We're becoming, right? We're allowing, things are moving through us. We're honoring a spark.
Mm-hmm.
And you were brave enough to follow that spark, which does take courage. And I know many people in our audience might feel a little bit overwhelmed or overloaded with life. They're overfunctioning or overdoing. And they might just have gotten a little bit of inspiration from your story where you heard that spark and followed it. So, how did you know creativity would become a central part of your life and work? Was that always in you, or did that emerge itself?
Well, I would say I was always liked doing creative things and
Hmm.
was very much into arts and theater
Hmm.
and creating and making up sketches and skits when I was younger. Like I always liked
Hmm.
doing creative things, but I literally had put it at in the realm of to do when after the real work is done and when you have time. It was
Hmm.
only in the last couple years before I started my business that I was really looking at how do I integrate it? How do I integrate it?
Hmm.
I will at that time it I remember there was this Anais Nin quote that I had, back then with like bulletin boards. It was like
Hmm.
pre-social media. And
Hmm.
it said, the risk of remaining when the risk of remaining in the bud is greater than the risk it takes to change.
Hmm.
Um, Something like that. I'm sure I didn't say
I
that.
know the quote, but I can't quote it either exactly. But
And
I think
what
it's
happened
familiar.
was the risk of not doing it, the
Hmm.
lack of joy of not doing it, and the joy
Hmm.
I had with doing it. I thought I will be willing to risk anything. Plus, I was doing a lot of creative practices and meditative and centering practices,
Hmm.
and so I would be in an active dialogue with my
Hmm.
creative source. I took a workshop in college once, and we learned how to dialogue with works, dialogue with your body, dialogue with your creative self. And I would be dialoguing with my business, dialoguing with myself. So I was actively, how do I bring you to life? What can I do? And I would try things. And I will say the first 10 years of the 26 years I've done it were a big struggle.
Mm.
And there were many learnings. So it was less I had less resistance about starting my work because I just knew that um, I didn't feel alive elsewhere. But once I was in my work, there were many times I wanted to leave. And there were many times where I overextended myself. And so I can really answer to that more when I was in the first few years of my business. And one was I
Sure.
would say yes to I was new, so I didn't have any discernment. I would just say yes to everything for everyone,
Mhm.
and I would allow myself to. I had no healthy boundaries.
Mhm.
I and so I would say the first 10 years of my business were what I have later came to call boundary boot camp. I
Mhm.
learned how to create boundaries. I learned that if I don't keep a strong container, it will leak energy or people will start asking for things. I learned how to discern what's the difference between what's a healthy no versus me just resisting something, or
Yes.
what's a healthy yes versus just kind of some shiny object or just saying yes because someone asked. And
Mhm.
I will say that's a practice.
Mhm.
That was a practice that took a while. Like what's a real yes versus what's a yes that I'm just doing to be accommodating and not make
Mhm.
waves, look good,
Mhm.
and I don't want my client not to like me, and and the client.
Mhm.
And then I started learning the voice of the intuitive voice within. When something was a real yes, the energy would open in a certain way. And when it was a real no, it would close. And I started becoming much more aware of it. It took a few years to really get more clear of it because one thing I would offer is I don't know if anyone out there listening can relate, but I used to, in my first few years, I would end up feeling resentful.
Mhm.
Um, And what I came to discover was resentment was always located to a place where I didn't set healthy boundaries.
Mhm.
And once I started setting really good boundaries, I haven't had any resentment since. And I believe resentment's always connected to boundaries. So for me, I would say the biggest um, way that I learned how to be less overburdened and overtaxed was truly setting boundaries.
Mhm.
And the second one was committing to a practice of giving my creative self, in whatever way that was, um,
Mhm.
space in my week because I needed my aliveness breaks.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. It's really insightful. I mean, you took us on a journey through several things about awareness around the overfunctioning itself, people pleasing. You didn't use those terms, but saying yes when you need to say no. And I would say internal boundaries, because often people think boundaries as something like I need to control the other,
Mm,
right? But
yeah,
really, it's about like internally, what is a healthy yes to me, and what
exactly.
is a healthy no, and protecting your energy, taking care of yourself. Wouldn't you say that's an internal
I think
boundary?
that's a great yes. And
Mhm.
frankly, it was all internal boundaries. Like I came to
Mhm.
learn that. And I started seeing the people because at first there was I would feel when I was being asked something that wasn't feeling right to me. And
Mhm.
in the beginning, I would put it on the person. But then when
Mhm.
I started, the biggest thing I would say I learned is take it on, own it. It's not them. Own it. That if I would have one piece of advice, you get empowered and you get freedom of what you own. At first, it's hard because it's much easier to say, they keep encroaching on my boundaries. They keep asking me to do, they're
Yeah,
demanding things. And
it's a
once
blame.
I
Yeah.
said, you know what, I'm going to own it, they're showing me, they're giving me an opportunity to strengthen my resolve for healthy boundaries. They
Mhm.
are offering me an invitation to use my voice to say
Mhm.
yes or no. They are helping me become empowered. So once I
Right.
reframed it to
Mhm.
these people, they're gifts. It's about
Mhm.
me. And anything that I learned how to own, then I felt like I could work on. And
Yes.
that's how you get off the rat race kind of energy and into your own empowerment. Whether you work for yourself or somewhere else, there is a way of taking ownership.
Mhm. I like that, because when we focus on it's the other person that is doing something wrong, we're powerless in that situation,
Exactly.
right? We're just giving that's the giving up our power, which a lot of people use that phrase, but it's like, what is exactly does that mean? Well, that's an example of it. Saying yes when you need to say no, or saying no when you need to
Yeah.
say no. So it's an agency. It's taking up space in the world, which I didn't know early on that I could do, that I could have agency and I could advocate for myself in a healthy way, not with force. It's kind of like a force or collapse situation when you're in that too.
Yeah.
You collapse into yourself and you don't take up space and you don't feel worthy of asking for what you need. I mean, I'm adding a lot of words here, but because this can go far and wide and deep, but you are owning it, takes responsibility, and you immediately step into power. You step into your own power.
Oh my gosh, I
Yeah.
love what you're saying. Yeah, you're just yes
I'm
anding
just
it.
reflecting that energy back,
Yeah,
what I
no, I
just
love it
heard.
because
Yeah.
it's exactly true. We get empowered through what we own because that's what we have agency on. That's what we get to change.
Mhm.
Anywhere we give, and it's very tempting. It's not a one and done. Oh, I'm just
Mm-mm.
going to own it. I looked back in the last couple of years. I looked back to an old journal I had written in my early days of my business, and I was writing sort of to myself, saying, you know, um, don't ask permission for your power. Don't fight for your power. Claim it.
Mhm.
Claim it. And
Mhm.
that was a journey in those first, claiming it. So that would mean claiming what I wanted. And I often, some of it was the healthy no, but sometimes I didn't say the healthy yet. Yes. So
Mhm.
not saying the healthy no could lead to resentment, which I don't have anymore because I own it. But
Mhm.
not saying the healthy yes led to some regrets. Like there were times where I had opportunities and offers that I did not say yes to because I
Mhm.
had different fears and resistances. And I have two minds about it. One is I completely accepted but that's exactly where I was, and I had to
Mhm.
work through those fears and resistances. And the other is the me now would thought like, oh, I wonder what would happen if I would have said yes. But I don't regret it because I've
Yeah.
come to see that is so. Some of it's the healthy yes, even if you're afraid, go into it. And then
Yeah.
some of it's a healthy no when something doesn't feel right. And I had to look into my head and say, "Oh my gosh, well, they might not hire me again, or they might not want."
Mhm.
And then I started saying, "You know what? I can okay."
Yeah.
That and the other I'd say technique I use that would help me a lot is go because I believe when you have truth on your side, like I have truth on my side. What's the truth? The truth
Mhm.
is this would be better if I had this boundary. I could do better work. I could do,
Mhm.
serve. So having a sense of knowing what your truth is and
Mhm.
speaking from it actually gave much better boundaries. As soon as I learned that, I started realizing I didn't have to work so hard to create boundaries. They were just kind of almost invisibly more there.
That's right. That's right. Because you're attuning to yourself and your needs, and you're speaking from that. And I believe that creates more trust, with
Yeah,
yourself, right? So then you're
yeah,
moving a little bit more with ease and grace in your life, and it's not so hard to say yes or no because you can trust that you're saying yes and no from what is right for you.
exactly.
What's on point for you.
Yeah. And then going, and there's a point where you let go of the control. Like I used to be focused on I would want to control the outcome. And
Mm.
now it's more I want
Let me
to
sign up for. I absolutely was that person as
Yeah.
well.
And now it's more, if I said what was my truth and I said
Mhm,
it with, I would say, like, I want to say what's true with as much loving kindness as I can. I
mhm,
say it true and say it kind. If I said
mhm.
what was true and I said what was kind, then I'd have to, then that was mine to do. Beyond that, I just sort of had to let go.
Yes.
And that was another big liberating thing. I have a mantra I do daily that for over 20 years, and that it's just every day I'll just stop and focus on asking to be fully present for what's mine to do, no more, no less.
Mm,
So no more means I won't I don't want to spend my energies or time doing things that aren't mine to do. And no less means I'll step up, because I could also have a tendency sometimes where I didn't step in the beginning, especially
mhm.
where I didn't step into a lot of opportunities. Like, I'll step up and I'm not going to shy away from it. And
Right.
so no, both no more, no less can bring up fears.
Mhm,
And but by staying focused on it and having that as an intention, our creative unconscious, our brain, creative will always try to give us what we're asking for.
mhm.
So by asking I like to be present to what's mine to do, no more, no less, it helped more often me be
Yeah,
present.
that's an amazing, navigational tool and an awareness in our bodies, and I feel also that expansion and collapse, right? An expansion could be force, right? Force, I'm going to do this. I'm going to will myself through it. I have to. The over functioning, over responsibility, overworking, taking on things that are not yours. All of that, in no more and no less, really, it really encompasses it very well, because even the no less part could be resisting, being afraid to show up in life, being
Mhm.
afraid to take up space. So it can be over functioning or under functioning, right? So we don't really want to be in that polarity if we can, but we have to practice with it.
Yeah.
It's just part of life. And that's a simple signpost.
Yeah.
Say your mantra one more time for the audience. Let's like really
What's mine
integrate
to
that.
do, no more, no less. And I would say something usually to serve my highest creative emergence, or to serve this client, or to design this workshop, or to
Hmm.
speak at this event. What's mine to
Hmm.
offer, no more. I just like to be present to that. And it's not an exact science. Sometimes it's like in improv theater, which I've done a lot of improv. Sometimes it's you run out on the stage and take a lead role, and then other times you step back.
Hmm.
You're there to serve the scene. What does the
Hmm.
scene need? Sometimes it needs you to come in and do a lot. Other times it needs you to step back. Sometimes it needs you to just run and go. This no more, no less is a little like that. It's
Yeah.
and I have understepped and overstepped even with that mantra. But I will say, by having it as a conscious intention every day, it started shifting things in the earlier days of my business. And
Yeah. I can
you
see
know,
that. It brings you back to center. I feel it
yeah,
brings me back to center when you say it, and when I say it to myself, I feel like oh, you see those scales, right? The scales, like you have to
yeah,
stand them at the doctor's office and they do that teeter totter and then they come into stillness. That brings me back into
like
stillness,
an equilibrium. Yes, I
like
love
an
it.
equilibrium.
I love that.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is. I like that. You're right. I actually hadn't thought about how it changes my posture, or your posture when you do it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I will do that at the beginning of my coaching sessions with my
Hmm.
clients,
Hmm.
but I haven't thought about that. So thank you for that
Well,
awareness.
I'm a somatics person as well.
Ah,
Somatics is
okay.
being, soma means body. So it's about a body awareness, consciousness, and practice. And, when I started to listen to a little bit of like how my body moves when I hear that, I'm like, oh, what does that feel like in the center of my body? Am I connected with my head and my heart and my feet?
Yes.
My center, my pelvis? And that one's a very centering phrase. It's a
Mm,
very centering phrase. So Michelle and I have a bit of, connection. I feel energetically through the creative, through movement. I have not been in improv. We don't have everything in common, and her work is astounding and provides. a lot of richness through these processes. So you might see me actually move with Michelle because there's a resonance here.
Yeah, I know
Really
I do that.
easy.
Yes.
Yeah.
I find myself doing that too, right.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's a body consciousness. So I think talking about before I move into that, I wanted to just touch on just this is stepping back a few moments ago, but we talked about just you brought up resentment, and I want to normalize resentment as a signpost. It is an extreme signpost that you are off center. So there's something off center. You're giving probably too much or doing too much or being over responsible, something you're wanting the world to take care of you when you're taking care of the world. I had that one. I felt everyone else should be doing things like I'm doing. I had a lot of projection onto the world. So I'm there for everybody. Why aren't people here for me? It's very off balance. Resentment can show up in lots of different ways and thoughts, emotions, and it can show up in your body. So if you're feeling that, step back and do this practice. I think this practice Michelle just shared about no more, no less is very centering in that.
Yeah. Oh,
Right.
thank you. Yeah, you could even
Yeah.
say, "What's mine to do, no more, no less, in this
Hmm.
situation or in the,"
Hmm.
and then breathe, you know, and
Yeah.
then
Breathe.
see what emerges.
Hmm.
That's it's just one practice, but it's
Hmm.
that one I've done for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very wise practice, and I appreciate that it came to the surface today to be shared. And I will also share, just in that realm, that if you feel the impulse that you need to do something and you don't know what to do, just give it a moment, give it space. Maybe you want to respond and say yes or no to the person, but you say, well, let me get back to, let me get back with you on that. Create a little bit more space.
Mhm.
So you
Mm.
slow down the impulse to do anything. No more, no less doesn't also have to be reactive and make a decision in that moment. It's an intention. Yeah.
Absolutely. And one of the things I would say too that um, you know, sort of moving out of empowerment into just very, part of being empowered or navigating overwhelm is, that resilience and adapting,
Hmm.
being able to bounce back quickly.
Hmm.
And that's another thing that reduces the resentment, or reduces carrying, I would say breathing life into dead logs. You don't, so I never want to breathe life into, I will breathe life into a wilted tree, plant or tree that needs some nurturing and loving and watering. Sometimes we neglect, but if it's a dead log, if it's done,
Hmm.
I want to be able to move on. And what I found is, well, improv theater helped me really be able to do that because at any given moment you let go, new choice, new scene, new.
Hmm.
With my clients, one of the things I would really um, is being able to that their in between session practices are often very creative and new to one create new neural pathways, which starts to
Hmm.
break our patterns, and is to break out of habitual patterns, habitual assumptions, ways of thinking, um, because when we loop in the same ways, we're less adaptive, responsive, resilient. We're
Hmm.
more on autopilot.
Absolutely.
Autopilot, actually, our brains, autopilot is we're just going down our same familiar neural pathways. It's like if you
Hmm.
when you're going down the same roads every day. So you go some different ways in your brain. The same
Hmm.
way people like to travel and go for different adventures in the world. Imagine your inner landscape and go for different adventures, have some different adventure travels in going
Hmm.
down new neural pathways. And so sometimes when you're contemplating something and want some an insight or awareness, draw it out, paint it out,
Hmm.
move it out, dance it out, dialogue it out,
Hmm.
um, act it out. There's so many different ways. Our creative self has so many different languages. And
Hmm.
we tend in our society to be left brain dominant kind of, but the
Mhm.
right brain, the whole body, our whole selves, have so many other ways of engaging that I would say if you find yourself stuck in a pattern or you hear something and say, yeah, it's easy to say, I don't want to be overwhelmed, but in that moment, and I would say the first thing is start breaking your patterns so then you become a person who can be easily resilient, that you're not
Yes.
holding to patterns. So easy resilience does help
Mhm.
you through
Yeah,
the
because resistance feels terrible, right? Resistance and deadlock, especially in our bodies. It feels like everything hardens up and
the
it's not flowing.
yeah.
And let's go. Let's define. Because a lot of people don't think they're creative because we've been so conditioned out of it. Every child is creative, right? We start out. You have like you're doing something. You're playing pretend. You have no problems grabbing the art supplies and attacking a piece of paper, or are dancing, or all of the infinite things that children do. But when we get older, it's been conditioned out. Just like you said, you put the creativity last. I want to get to that win, right? It's kind of
Mhm,
like
mhm,
we have taken creativity in as a culture, and a lot of corporations and so forth in our world, corporate cultures and so forth have taken creativity and kind of pushed it out,
mhm.
where we need to adopt it and pull it back in. So, speak to number one. What do you mean by being creative? Like, is everybody creative, and how can they reacquaint themselves with that? And then, like, why do we need to be creative? Some basics, and then let's dive back into the depth and width
Okay.
of your
Well,
work.
I will say I've called myself a creativity catalyst coach consultant for 25 years, and I still don't have one definition that doesn't
Sure.
feel too limiting, because it's creativity. So, but what it's not is it's not just that being an artist or the expressive arts. It includes
Hmm.
it.
Yes.
It includes art, it includes theater, includes movement, includes everything. But it's a whole way of being in the world. I actually believe creativity is our natural state. If you look at
Mhm.
kids like you just said, when we're kids, we're I believe we're all born to creative and we are always infinitely creative. The only difference is we get socialized, trained, educated out of believing we are or
Yeah,
out of being in touch with it. And so the good news is we have nature on our side.
that's right.
We have nature on our side. So if you decide no matter how young or old or you are, that you want to start activating and reactivating and reconnecting with your creative self, you have nature on your side. It's an infinite wellspring just waiting for you to visit it. So it's not like you have to learn how to be creative. It's almost like you have to break the patterns that told you or taught you that you weren't. And a lot of it was well meaning parents or teachers or communities or educational systems that just focused somewhere different or thought of it as something to do on the side or something or childish or
Yeah.
whatever it is. And so, no, if you feel any aliveness, any impulse, anything that sparks you when you're listening or hearing someone else talk about their creativity, or when you're walking, let's say in a pottery shop and see some pottery, oh, I wish I could do that. Or when you're watching something on television, oh, I wish I could do. I would say, don't shut down that impulse.
Yeah.
Follow that impulse. Our creative self is always whispering to us, and sometimes it's talking, yelling and talking loud. It takes a
Yeah.
lot of energy to block it out, but we have given, so it's reconnecting with it. Creativity is it's how people, how you create a dinner, how you create a garden,
Hmm.
how you manage a staff, how you
Hmm.
lead a team, how you do your leadership. You can have a very creative leadership. How you So it's anything. It's not and I believe not only is it the thing that you not do in the workplace that is actually the central driving force for life-giving, generative work that you feel alive doing. If you manage people, the team will feel more alive. You bring more creativity and co-creativity into your workplace, and the whole team and culture can shift if you're in a leadership position and can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you hit on a lot of great examples. There's so many, right? Infinite creativity
Yeah.
is what I heard was life force, right? Regenerative
Yes.
energy. Nature is a great example of it. It is
Yes.
regenerative, always growing. I live in Hawaii, right? I have lived, not currently, I live on Oahu, but I have lived on the island of Hawaii, Big Island, just miles, a couple of miles from where the lava flow entered the ocean. So I watched the birth. They would call it not destruction. And Hawaiian's point of view, Pele, the goddess of fire, produces the lava and reclaims the land. So I've
Mm,
seen the birth of the land,
mm.
and I've walked on those active new lava fields. And I can say that life force is the most creative thing
Yeah.
that I can still access in my body today and through memory. So think of nature every time you grow a plant. Maybe you have herbs for your kitchen, and like you said, maybe you got into that sourdough phase during our lockdowns. Maybe you made herbs and sourdough bread. And then you feel in yourself the life force energy, not only the life force energy from the nutrition entering your body, but the life force energy of creation. And so I believe your talk there encompassed that. And I know for me, I feel the aliveness coming to me just hearing you speak about it. So if everyone just could connect with creativity in that way.
I love it. Yeah, it's the if you think of it in us, I call it the creative source because it's the source of our creativity, but it's the animating life force. Um, if you think of it's the energy that allows a flower to be born or a baby to be born, that
Mhm.
it's the life force. So think about in creativity in all of nature, there's an expansion and contraction. Like
That's right.
there, and so sometimes it can be laborious. There's some labor, just like in a human, because there's the one part of us trying to, just like the womb, hold the status quo. Oh, it's so
Mhm.
comfortable in here. And then now the life force energy is like, I'm ready to hit the scene. And so there's this little bit, or a
That's
chick
right.
busting out of the shell,
Oh,
it's trying to
yes.
break out. And the shell's like designed in nature to protect it and hold it in place. And then the
Yes.
life force comes, it has an idea, impulse, wants to create a new world. It starts. So there's a little bit of dynamic tension for a bit until
Mhm.
it pushes through. What happens is if you treat all your impulses like the chick coming out of the shell and
Mhm.
follow it and let it be born, the difference a lot of times, and I've worked with so many people, of the people who bring their dreams into fruition or go from jobs that feel overwhelming to jobs that feel alive and
Mhm.
generative for them, is not that the people are more intelligent, or definitely not that they're more creative, but
Mhm.
what the I would say the biggest difference is they don't shut down the impulse. They
Mhm.
allow when the beak knocks at the shell, I want to come out, I want to
Wanna come out.
or be
Mhm.
creative in the world. The shell lets it.
Mhm.
They let it. And they might not know, because creativity is messy. Think of any new birth. Think of when a baby is first born, or
Mhm.
anything in nature. It's all matted
Mhm.
down. It doesn't, like,
Mhm.
it's not the pretty. So people will have this idea, and because it doesn't look all pretty and fully formed, like, and cleaned up
Mhm.
like a baby, they'll it gets rejected, not even from other people, but from ourselves. How
Yes.
often have you been running or walking or taking a shower, and a great idea comes to you, and by the end of it, you've talked yourself out of it?
Right.
We've all probably done that. Well, the people who are doing work that feels very generative to them often just allow themselves more of that divergent space to explore it. They
Mhm.
may not know it's messy when it comes out. It might not make sense. It might look like, how's that going to work? I have no idea. Well, let me explore it. Let me
Yeah.
look at how might that look? What might happen? And they hold it. And in creativity, it's, divergent space or emergent space. They give it
Mhm.
space before they automatically shut it down. And I would say if that is one thing people could start doing, your life would change, is if when a little aliveness impulse comes, because it will, it's there, it shows up and don't let that left brain judge, evaluator, or critic go, yeah, but how's that going to work? How are we going to get the money? How are you going to plan it? How
Yeah.
are you
Yeah.
go, okay,
Mhm.
right now, I'm going to hold it in the divergent space, in the unknown. I don't know how any of that's going to, the how, but here's what I want to follow. I want to nurture that alive energy into being.
Mm. Yeah. Let's nurture it. We don't know what those seeds, you have a seed in the ground and it's cracking through its little seed and it's forcing its way up to the sunlight. We don't even know what those plants are going to become, right? And they're
Exactly.
struggling. And then they finally get to the light and they start to blossom and you see it. So I, I want to touch on a couple of different things here from this inspiring talk is the holistically generative work that you're doing. I want you to unpack that for us because that's where we're at right now. We're talking about that in this conversation.
Hmm.
And we're looking at it in the space of the creative unknown.
Mm.
So if you would connect us with your work, I would really like to expand on that here.
Oh, well, thank you.
Mhm.
Um, I would love to, because I'm so passionate about it. Um, I don't know, somewhere maybe 3 or 4 or 5 years into my coaching, I kind of had developed this model, emerged into my consciousness through a variety, holding it for a long
Mhm.
time, and going back and forth of, what I really want to help people do is create work that's holistically generative for them. And meaning it's both financially generative and creatively generative. Like, they get paid for this work. This is work that they charge for and get paid for. Although
Mhm.
anyone having money from any other different kind of way, great, that's awesome. But I'm talking about people that are in a position where they have to, generate income, but
Mhm.
it's creatively generative. And I call it soulfully generative, or
Mhm.
it has a meaning, it has purpose, it
Mhm.
has, because what happens is you could have creativity, but if it's not connected to something that has meaning or purpose, it's more of a fleeting fun versus
Mhm.
an ongoing, um, unfolding, and
Mhm.
um, and then it serves a greater good. What I found is, in my coaching, and a greater good isn't someone else's idea of what that means. I'll just explain that. A greater
Mhm.
good can mean it's good for your family, it's good for your
Mhm.
environment, your neighbors, good for your team, or it's good for the planet. It's good for, it, it's, it benefits someone somehow more than just us, like it serves a greater good in some way. One of the things that I was going to say was, one of the things that I learned in the first few years of doing this work and now have really strengthened, is when I work with my clients, mm, I look at one of my main roles as sort of like the midwife for their creative story, to
Mhm.
midwife them what wants to be born in the unknown
Mhm.
from them. And my main role is to help them connect with their creative source, that their inner creative life force, because that, when they partner with that, that's going to be a business partner, advisor, um, partner in all kinds of life endeavors long after the coaching is done. And
Mhm.
so when you begin to do that, you no longer see the unknown as just something to be afraid of, or
Mhm.
um, un, you learn how to go, if you can transform the fear of uncertainty into discovery. It doesn't mean, you're not faking it.
Mhm.
When people get uncertain, they tend to contract and they freeze. I have an
Mhm.
exercise I do when people walking in uncertainty and they're very like
Like
slow,
shut
and
down.
then, yeah, slump. Like, imagine uncertainty in your body. Now transform. You still don't know the answers, but transform that uncertainty into discovery. All of a sudden,
You
you're
go,
up,
wow.
looking. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So That's something you can do any moment, any day when the fear of not knowing goes, well, let me discover. And so sometimes it's people will say, yeah, but I don't have control over, the things I'm afraid of that I don't know, I don't have control over. Um, we're talking a lot about work, and it might be, yeah, like what your boss will do or what somebody else will say or a
Mhm.
team or a client. So that's when part of learning to not fear the unknown is really what you tapped into it earlier when you're talking about agency. What
Mhm.
do you have agency over within the situation?
Mhm.
So I may not have agency over um, what a client is going to say or do in a situation, but I have agency over what's mine to do in there, and
Mhm.
I can certainly go more into discovery into, there are like, there's a time I know I do a lot of facilitation on sites. And so sometimes I've learned to always have plan Bs, but they'll say, we're going to have the room set up this way. Like I needed a room for all kinds of movement,
Mhm.
and was doing a highly somatic kind of course and needed a
Mhm.
big room with movement. Well, last minute something happened and they do this. It was the small boardroom that just had a giant boardroom table in it.
And you're like all constricted. Ah.
Yeah, and it was for like a more somatic creativity workshop, for this client. And so, you just immediately have to, okay, oh, all right, how do I navigate it? How do I still meet the objectives? And so it just sort of adapted, like, what can they do sitting at their seats, still moving and
Mhm.
still doing this? How do we use the chairs? How can we use
Mhm.
them? It didn't look the way I originally, but yeah, it was just a more of a discovering what could work, and sometimes even big unknowns. Like I have no idea if I'm going to get this workshop or if I'll be fired next. Some people will think they have no idea if they're going to be fired, or
Mhm.
they have no
Sure.
idea. There's lots of uncertainties in the world, and I'd say turn what you do have agency over into discovery and find a way of holding what you don't have agency over in a way where you can hold it, where it's not doesn't get control over
Mhm.
you. It can have a seat at a table, being informed, understanding what, certain situations, but what you have agency has the biggest seat at the table. And then if you go into discovery mode and also access various parts of your whole brain,
Mhm.
go into discovery mode with, right with the opposite hand. I mean, that's kind of a common
Mhm.
one, but right with your opposite
Mhm.
hand, you start access. Draw things first before talking about it.
Mhm.
Paint things out. I know for myself, I often will draw things abstractly, and then I'll come bring my left brain to say,
Mhm.
you know, and
Mhm.
to talk it through. So those are just a few. There's working in the unknown. My tagline for the last 26 years has been consciously creating what's next. So working in the unknown, and my blog's the fertile unknown. So I love the unknown. And just a few ways are, um, partner with your creative source. Get to know it. Get to trust it. Get to trust your own inner creative self, your own inner resourcefulness, um, and then turn uncertainty into discovery, and then do a lot of different pattern breakings engagement to unearth new and different ideas.
Oh, I was going to ask you about, you must have read my mind. I was going to ask you about practical takeaways for the audience because this is such a rich experience moving through these different aspects of our lives and the aspects of what creativity is, why we need it in our lives. What it's life giving, right? It's life giving, and what we do when we face the creative unknown is in my body I still have that reflex to move, not move forward into it with curiosity and discovery, but reflexively move away. And so, I think life can definitely condition us to that. We can be conditioned to stay within the lines, and sometimes drawing the lines off the page and creating a different a pattern, like you said, break those patterns to explore and discover new ways is the way through. So, would you like to recap again? Just for, I want to make sure because we've been talking a little bit. Let's just recap that practical wisdom, those next steps or strategies, if you don't mind. Can we go just walk through those
Sure.
one more time?
I would say one, and I'm not sure if this was the order I said
It
it in,
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
then,
Yeah.
when you're hit, one, give your creative self, your creative source, your life force energy, some space, time, and attention. If you
Mhm.
can do something, the way if you had a child or an animal, like you might take a little time to feed them, or if you have a dog, you'll take time to walk it. Do something for your creative self every day.
Mhm.
And try to break the pattern, do different things, low risk, low stakes environment, prepare you for the high risk, high stakes of life in the world and your real work. So do it in very safe ways till you get into habit of being a pattern breaker. Um,
Mhm.
turn the fear of uncertainty it into discovery if you can. And to what? Also, you just said something so true about even though we know this, me too. There are things I feel uncertain about, and I'll find myself going into contraction, like and so
Reflexively. Yeah.
yeah, reflexively, and so that's in that moment. I'll go, okay, well, what do I have agency over? What
Mhm.
can I influence out of this? I may not be, you can't influence the weather, but you can influence if you wear an umbrella or if you stay in
Mhm.
or if you can make choices around it. What can I influence given the situation? And then I would say think in terms of creating new neural pathways. How do I take different kinds of creative trips in my inner landscape? How do I,
Ooh, I like
uh,
that.
draw things? Today my trip may be painting something or drawing it, and without the goal of it being good art, but with the
Mhm.
goal of it as being informing your discovery or just moving energy, and
Mhm.
also use your body. Sometimes so you might even say, okay, in my body, I feel resistance. What does that feel like? And you could, and then like,
Yep.
okay, and how then maybe I will allow my body without me dictating it to move into a place of expansiveness rather than
Uh,
me. So another thing, look at what you do have agency over, use your body. The We have been given such amazing resources that no one else has agency over for us, our bodies, our brains, our creativity. So use all of that wealth that you do have agency over.
yeah. Oh my gosh. I just feel like I got a rich lesson and lots of different options. And I think options are so important when you're feeling places inside of yourself that are stuck or shut down or overloaded. We need to have options. And those were a wide variety of ideas, practices, things you can implement, like you said, in small ways when it's low risk, to give yourself, start practicing. Those neural pathways are so important. And I've noticed that when I allow myself a little time to do that, it makes profound changes
Yeah.
with practice. A little
Yeah.
bit at a time makes big changes.
Mhm.
Thank you for sharing all of those words of
Thank
wisdom.
you. It's been so
Yeah.
great chatting with you. I've enjoyed this conversation. Thank you.
Oh, it's a joy to have you here. Always a joy to play with you, Michelle. I want to play more. That's all I want to do is enjoy this life like
Yes,
we
and I
are.
will add that in. Find
Hmm.
ways of having fun.
Hmm.
When you bring lightness in, there's all kinds of beautiful brain chemicals release when you bring lightness in, and even if it's just take a break and watch a funny video that you'll laugh
Hmm.
at, or take an improv class, or go, watch stuff, but, or play with somebody, whatever.
Yeah,
Playfulness is a great energy mover out of
yeah.
stuckness into creativity. Sorry, I just had to add that in.
No, this is a free flow, and do not apologize for adding words of wisdom. I love it. Like little drops in the bucket. Just one practice. Just pick out one practice of the many that Michelle just shared with us, and and try it. I mean, be curious and play. Have fun. You know, we're going to be more ourselves when we're relaxed and creative. We're in a creative space when we're in the whole brain, as you said. So, um, I wanted to talk to you. I wanted to invite you to tell us about the free gift that you've brought for the audience today so they can connect with you and just be reminded of how to be more alive. Yeah.
Sure. Well, because I just thought of all the ebooks I have, I thought I would offer this one for this audience. It's called 12 Practices for Creative Aliveness. And in it, every page has a practice and then some ideas on how to carry it out. Today we discussed a couple, but there are 12 in there very specifically to help you navigate the creative process and become more alive doing it. And it's very focused on aliveness. And for more, I even have a book, my book, Pattern
Yes.
Break, a facilitator's guide to cultivating creativity, has so many also
Mhm.
additional practices. But the 12 practices for creative aliveness are a free gift for
Yes.
anybody.
So that link is going to be right below this interview and your speaker guide as well. So you'll be able to connect with Michelle, her website, and get this free gift. And the Pattern Breaks book, if you'd like to give us a link to that as well, we'll be glad to link it below as
Sure.
well. Michelle, I
Okay.
don't think we've talked about that before, but let me ask you a question about the Pattern Breaks book because it's for facilitators. So let's say a company or entrepreneur has a group of people that they want to do a creativity type workshop with. They want to help people break these patterns. Is that book appropriate for them?
Yes, and I would say it says facilitator's guide, but I was using it more in a more global sense. It is certainly professional facilitators, coaches who want to
Mhm.
bring more creativity out of their clients, workshop designers, course creators, and leaders who want to bring
Mhm.
more creativity out of team. A lot of the people that have been using this are leaders who want to bring more creativity out of their teams,
Yeah.
or anyone who wants to bring creativity in the group. And I would even say there are so many practices in there, principles, mindsets, practices, that you can even do by yourself.
Mhm.
So it really would be a little bit of an additional support to break your own patterns or
Yeah, I'm
help
sure.
others with theirs. Yeah.
Personal and collectively, and creativity and innovation is really the way to go. It's the way to add life force, come up with new
Yeah.
ideas, problem solve, experience pleasure. It's just have all the happy biochemistry that we want going on in our brains, and create those new neural pathways. So I want a copy of the book. I'm very interested in more of your work, Michelle, as always, and I hope everyone else that is interested will grab a copy of that book as well. We'll link that below,
Yeah.
for
Thank you.
ease for everyone. Yeah,
Yeah. So
absolutely loved it.
patternbreaks.com. But yeah,
Absolutely love supporting your work. So,
thank you. I will
one
send.
final thought, one final mic drop type moment, any truth that you want to impart to our audience today that you haven't, and no pressure if you don't have that, but I'm thinking from inner wisdom and unique path. Any words for your audience today?
If anybody ever told you or you came to an idea in some way that you were not completely, fully, hugely creative, they were wrong. They didn't know. Um, you are for sure infinitely creative, so beyond your imagination, beyond what you can even know. And so, my one piece of thing is be kind to yourself. If and when you experience resistances in the creative process, be kind to yourself during setbacks. But most significantly, let go of any assumptions or beliefs or programming or trainings in there that said so and so's the creative one, or I'm the left brain one, whatever. Doesn't matter. You could be very left brain dominant. You're still totally creative. So honor your creativity, follow your impulse, and don't let anyone ever take that away from you. It's your birthright.
Thank you, Michelle. It's a beautiful invitation
Thank you.
that we're all creative. We're all creative forces in our own ways. And I just thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and heart, your insight on creativity and and purpose. You know, they're powerful messages and reminders to all honor our unique spark.
Mm.
And to the audience, don't forget there's more inspiration coming your way. Just check your inbox for daily summit updates. We have many more speakers, exciting speakers to come, and bonus sessions, more freebies for you. So please join us. Stay tuned. You won't want to miss it. See you soon.